Hello. I hope that you're experiencing victory in whatever struggles you may be having in your life, particularly talking today about spiritual warfare. Hope that God will soon crush Satan under your feet. But here I'm going to talk about three classic books on spiritual warfare, which if you want to learn more, I don't know that it's a good idea necessarily, unless you are experiencing spiritual warfare in whatever situation you're in, to whether you are really under assault of the enemy or experiencing the enemy in whatever area you're ministering, to really spend too much time in this. To spend a lot more time in praising the Lord, knowing His goodness, following Him. But these are three works which a lot of people have profited from, and they're here, they're available, and I hope that you find them helpful. The first one is one which I was surprised to actually find available on Amazon. It's right here. Biblical Demonology, Treatise of Satan's by Richard Gilpin. Richard Gilpin was a pastor and a doctor. He's listed here as a medical doctor, but he's also a pastor. He's a graduate of Oxford University in the mid 1600s, and I honestly wonder if C.S. Lewis had read this, because this would have been in part of the area of literature which he was interested in, and he might well have read this. I haven't gotten to his work on the literature from that time, so he might actually have read this at some point. But this is a base book, one of the foundational books on spiritual warfare, and I believe it had a greater influence than a lot of people may have known about. So it talks not only about the works of Satan in possession and oppression, but also temptation, and talks about the temptation of Jesus in detail. So anyone who's preaching or teaching on the temptation of Jesus, this would be a good one to go to. Next one is one which a lot of people probably have heard of. This is the full text version, and I have done a lot of work at underlining it over the years myself, and it's one which it's not always easy to understand what they're saying. Jesse Penrose and Evan Roberts, based on after uh, the experience of Evan Roberts after the Welsh revival in 1904 in Wales, part of Great Britain. I wouldn't call them England or Scotland, because that's not really what they are. They're a part of Great Britain, and, so any of us here in the United States or around the world that would call them part of England, no, they really are. But it does deal with how Satan did try to infiltrate people's lives, and I don't find the testimony in the book itself, but Evan Roberts did have himself an experience of dealing with demons that time, and I believe it was terribly difficult for him. I've heard others talk about that testimony they had about that. So uh, take it. It talks about how Satan works in our lives. A lot of it working also how he works through pride and delusion, giving us spiritual pride, spiritual delusion, making us think that we're more than we are, and makes us, guides us, entices us to do things which are against the will of God, kind of like the temptation of Jesus, like throw yourself down from the pinnacle of the temple. So I think that there's a lot there that would speak to us today, and so I leave that there for you. Also, one, it was by the man, in fact, who managed to get the original full text, which I had there, republished, because it had been abridged and taken. But McCandlish Phillips, a strong believer in Jesus, who's also known as one of the best reporters from the New York Times from the 1960s, 1970s. And yeah, New York Times had a strong evangelical on their staff as a great reporter, and he has a um, list listing a book which I've been going through over the years. Just get interrupted times on his observations. So he was one of their best reporters, talking about the Bibles, the supernatural, and the Jews. He's not anti-Semitic there at all, but he speaks to people from a Jewish background, especially, seeing that they can sometimes seem to be greater targets for the working of the enemy and their great potential as people. So he does have an awful lot to say there. That's wonderful, and deals with New Age too. So he talks about the back of the book talks about the new gods and weekends, and witchcraft and stuff like that. So, and I'll give you a quick look at the table of contents while I'm at it. So you can pause and look and see what this is. The journey into the supernatural, the biblical structure of reality, thieves of forever, and so on and so on. And the original book here, you can find an abridged version of this. So, also, but the full text is available as well. So, leave those with you if you want to look into those. I hope that you'll find victory in whatever warfare you're having right now. You'd be free from fear, free from fascination, undue fascination with the powers of evil, but that you would find, as the Apostle Paul said at the end of Romans chapter 16, that that God will be treading Satan under your feet. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. I hope this has helped.